One nation under God, it's plain to see. We're showing the whole world what a country should be. United we stand in America, hand in hand in America. Together as one in a land that we love. United we stand in America.
Good morning, everyone out there. Welcome to Changing Times. It is Wednesday, March the 5th. It doesn't feel like spring at all today, but we made it in. A little bit of snow and a little bit of cold wind. But we are live at the Acts Media Group headquarters in Springfield, Missouri, and I'm Lynn Morris, and our guest, I'm
the co-host.
We're going to do the co-host first.
That's
the co-host is Dr. Mary Byrne.
Yes.
And I tell you what, we have a great guest today, Amy Christine Blansit. Good morning.
Good morning.
I tell you what, we've had you on the show before, and I wanted, you do so many great things. You are a difference maker, and your whole group is a difference maker, and we have people all the time back in the county, in Christian County, and even up in Jefferson City, that's always talking about homeless people, the people that can't afford to buy housing. We have a housing crisis. And we also have a crisis that people can't afford to even make a down payment on a home. And there's just all kinds of things that are going on that really are problems. And a lot of people just talk about it. And some people actually do something about it. And you are one of the people that actually has done some really good things to help people. So just kind of tell our audience, Amy, a little bit about you.
Sure.
What's your background?
So how much time do we have today? It's when you are a doer, right? There are so many things that you start digging into and realize no one's doing this. I've got to do it, I guess. No one's doing this. Well, you had mentioned, let's start from where we are now and work backwards. So the Drew Lewis Foundation has a project called the Blue House Project, and the Blue House Project does many of the things that you mentioned on how do we resolve things like the down payment or the affordability of housing. We bought an acre that's in Grant Beach that's just down from the Fairbanks School that we've renovated, and that acre could have, in current policy, legally we could put 4 houses on it. That's the number of lots that we have, and that fits the city code. I decided to do something that's technically illegal, and that is let's diversify the types of housing that are available in Springfield so they can be affordable, but also single family. So on what would be 4 houses, we're putting 14 and a clubhouse. Everyone says, how? How close are they going to be? How are you going to do that? So I live 20 feet away from my neighbor, and the houses that we're getting ready to build, some of them will be 10 feet away, some will be 20. But what we're doing is removing the excess of driveways. We're removing big lots that people at this time don't want to maintain. And then we are recruiting older adults who no longer want to mow all day Saturday. We're also, more importantly, looking for individuals who want to create community by living in a pocket neighborhood where your front porch faces your neighbor's front porch. And so we're doing it in a public-private investment, working with banks and donors. We've got the Hatch Foundation that's donated $250,000 for us to build the clubhouse, add green features, and make sure that we're doing a quality build. So we're really excited to launch that. 7 of them will be at market, adjusted market, because right now the market is insane. We're seeing it come down. We're seeing large industries sell off houses. So we are going to see some correction. We always sell our houses looking at kind of 5-year projection. Where were we 5 years ago? Where will be 5 years? So we don't use necessarily the appraised value. And then 7 of them will go to individuals that are at 200% of the federal poverty level or below. And that's the group that we mostly work on with the Drew Lewis Foundation.
Could we back up? Tell us about the Drew Lewis Foundation.
Yes. So Drew Lewis Foundation, it started with 12 years ago. Drew and I bought a school. It was a dilapidated school. It was slated to be torn down. It had been repossessed by the bank. And we bought it in November. Drew had been diagnosed with cancer, but was having surgery to remove tumors. Unfortunately, after those surgeries, immune system, cancer returned, and I lost Drew in May, and we had just closed on the school in February. So it really was about saving a building. I had no intention of starting a nonprofit. I have no intention of running a business. I was an educator. And
Life works that way,
Oh, it
doesn't
does.
it?
It really does. And that neighborhood was in Grant Beach. It was also at the time when Springfield was talking about our poverty problem for the first time. It was news. And talk about being a doer. I created a place where people who sometimes felt like their voice didn't matter or they didn't know what to do, maybe even just scraping paint in an old school that showed some idea of refreshing a neighborhood and saving something, became not only the therapy for me for managing trauma and moving forward, but it created community, people around me that also believed in that. And then as we opened our doors, we listened to that neighborhood has some of the highest poverty rates, some of the highest crime rates. And we just opened our doors and started potluck, started working with the residents, and started working with the conversation Springfield was having about, at that time, our poverty rate was at 27%. And so when 30% of our population is in 100% poverty level, we're in crisis. And then when you adjust it at the 200%, meaning above that I'm not living paycheck to paycheck, I forget the number, it was nearly 60%. And so we've done a great job to come together and reduce those, but we're still at 22%-ish poverty rate. And adjusted, we're still near 50%, 45% of individuals that can afford housing. And so we really look into that. We really work on solutions for that. And that's where the Blue House Project came in. Before the Blue House Project, we started a program with the Northwest Project Grant. And we work with individuals that are living paycheck to paycheck. That is defined, I might have a higher income and I should be able to afford a house, but I've never been taught what our kids are now calling adulting. I was at Missouri State yesterday presenting on a panel, and two students came up and asked to speak with me afterwards. And I asked both of them, they want to come and volunteer with us. I asked both of them, if you needed to go buy a car today, and you needed to make sure that you aren't going to get it taken advantage of, you're going to get the best rate, do you know anything about that process? And they both were like, absolutely not. I have no idea. And these are 20-year-old individuals who should have those skill sets. So when people ask, what do we do? I've insulted individuals listening, I think, on this show because I had said our program teaches what we did not get as adolescents. Right. And they thought I was saying people are dumb and they function like adolescents, and they didn't understand that I'm blaming everyone.
It's a curriculum deficit.
It is.
Whoever, and I think there's been an expectation that the schools will handle everything. Yeah. No. And at the same time, I've become aware of churches who finally understood, no, this is a community issue. Yeah. And many of the children in this generation come from a generation who didn't get that, so there's nothing to pass on there. Mm-hmm. There's got to be some community-oriented structure. I'm not going to call churches an organization because I think faith-wise they should be more. But if you're going to teach people liberty, then you have to teach them self-governance, and that means you need a skill set to be independent. Yes. And in all honesty, I think culturally we had been headed in the other direction to be dependent. So this idea of not judging people for the lack of a skill set, but just finding, doing the preliminary assessment, saying, okay, what do you need to know, and who's the best to teach it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And when we put a new system in place, so we talk about middle-class systems, we now are going and teaching banks how to create bankable resources to bring people back into the banking system. Because after the crash, there were so many regulations put into place, they then created a barrier that no one created the education how to navigate that barrier. And so instead, we pushed individuals out of banking because, sure, they overdrafted, but again, there was no connection between. And so we have predatory lending. And it is necessary when banks say, unless you're coming in for a $5,000 loan, there's so much work for us to do in regulation, we don't make money. So I can't loan you money. Well, where do you go when we also are saying our community is 40-50% strapped for cash, you can't go to your parents, you can't go to your friends, you can't go to your community to do that. And so it is on all of us. It is on, as parents, why are we ashamed to talk about money in our household? We should be telling our children constantly about not just we can't afford it, but here's our budget. Here's how much we have to work with. This is what a family budget looks like. Post it on a whiteboard, put it on your refrigerator. The same, it can be taught in churches, it can be taught in the school, but if it's not taught across the board, it's not going to be effective. As parents, we are so responsible. We can't push that off on the school.
So, Amy, I think that's one of the problems, though, because I think this has been going on for quite some time.
Oh, yeah, you don't talk about
it's-
money.
So when parents, I'm thinking about my parents. My parents are just average people, hardworking people, and my brother and I were very fortunate to have the parents that we had. And I had a work ethic, started mowing yards in the third
Yeah.
grade. And I made a lot of money, even though I only made $5 to $20 per yard. It was a lot of money back then. And my parents, first thing they did was go to the bank,
Yes.
start me a bank account.
Yes.
And I remember when I turned 16, I had several $1,000s that
Yeah.
I had saved up. And when I wanted to buy my first 65 Mustang, I remember that I thought my dad was going to buy it or help me buy it. No.
Yeah.
He told me, he said, well, that's what you work for,
Yeah.
son. And if you like that car, you've got the money to buy that car. Well, then I had to really think about it.
Yeah, 'cause
Was
then
I
you had
gonna-
no money left
'cause then it took
afterwards.
almost all the money away.
Gas.
But he did pay for the insurance for a while and stuff like that. And I'm thinking, so parents, so many parents didn't get taught themselves. And so then they weren't very good at
Correct.
teaching their kids. And so we do have a problem. So in the classes that you have, I know you have pretty good attendance
Yeah.
in those classes.
Yeah,
And-
we actually, the one we just started, we had the largest number of individuals and we have a waiting list.
So how do you advertise your classes, and who is your clientele?
Yeah, so we work with individuals who, so that's what we're kind of getting at. In Springfield, we have different levels of poverty, if you will. We can say all of it's poverty, living paycheck to paycheck. You just are not able to make bills. So if you are homeless, at risk right now for being homeless, you are in crisis. You don't have brain bandwidth to learn about interest rates and long-term planning. So when we received our first large grant, our task was to work with individuals who, based on research from another program, had transportation. That can be city bus, but you have transportation. You have to be able to get to your job. You were employable, so you either at least have a GED, or we would work with OTC, they would test, and you had to be able to complete it within 6 months and attend classes. And now we have the Excel Center. And then we ask, are you willing to improve through education and or employment? And so it's that trans-theoretical model of change. And if you say no, then this program isn't for you.
But are these just curious people who come through the door, or do you go out and find
We
people?
recruit. So one is we've got multiple programs that work with individuals in crisis, even like women who are in domestic violence, who now, many of them didn't handle family finances or were in such crisis, right? They're rebuilding.
So you get referrals.
Referrals from, so we've created a very deep network in Springfield of who is doing services that serve moments of crisis. Because what happens, then I create stability, and as I'm trying to move forward, yes, I might be on food assistance to make it. I might be on childcare assistance, but I increase my employment and the cliff effect. I lose those benefits, and now my raise actually puts me in the hole. So we really work on, through things like that, how do we find employment, education, gaps in employment so that we can help individuals have better rates. Our problem is Springfield's median income is still below 40,000 or right around 40,000. Some say it's as low as 36, some say it's 42, depends on the area because we have very affluent areas, right, that change that. And so that creates a problem because that means you can only afford a home that is about 120, maybe 150,000 if you have no other debt. Springfield doesn't have many of those. And if
No.
you do, it may need a roof. It may need lots of repair, and you barely are making it, and now you can't afford to maintain a home that begins to fall around you. And that's a lot of what we're seeing in Springfield. We have 92%, 95%, it might be 96. I have a number. It doesn't matter. More than 90% of our housing in Springfield is single-family housing, and the lot has to be at least 6,000 square feet, which about a fifth of an acre. And so the land, the home, all of it becomes expensive. And that's really what we're seeing in Springfield right now is conversation about what's going to happen as we change our code so that we can build diverse housing. That's a dirty word right now. But when we're talking about diversity in housing, we are not talking about the person living in it. We are talking about the housing type. When we can only build on land that we no longer have in Springfield, we have just a land crisis. And so we've got to look at, right now we're having lots of conversations about not in my backyard, right? But what we're seeing is we've got a large population of individuals that are over the age of 55 who no longer want a big yard. They want connection, they want community, and we don't have it. And so I'm excited to be in a place where we're looking at how do we build in a way that is thoughtful, in a way that is quality, but also in a way that intentionally creates community. Your house is forward facing with a front porch to the other house. Duplex, we have some of those, but looking more of the townhouse style where you own it and you don't have to own both sides.
Yeah, that I remember the neighborhood my father grew up in northeastern Pennsylvania. It wasn't intentional for remediating homelessness. But it was called a ghetto.
Yeah.
And that's because people of a particular ethnic origin, which was Polish, all moved into the same neighborhood because they were still working under this Polish as a first language thing. But they would have conversations across the porches because they were so close to each other.
I love it. So I live in Grant Beach. I have a neighbor who's lived there for like 17 years. He's never known his neighbors. And the first time I introduced myself, he was grumpy and like, what do you want from me? You can leave me alone. That's always been a quiet house and everyone's just left me alone. We now go to lunch together. We share trash service because neither of us create enough. He has some disability and, I take him to hospital visits if needed. And he said to me the other day, he sent me an email that was so lovely, just saying he finally feels like he has a person who understands him for the first time, that he feels that he can express himself and be heard, and he's never had that. And he's, in his 60s, and to me it just broke my heart, but also filled my heart on being able to be that person. And I'm just a neighbor. Like I just say hello. I just asked, can I help you with your trash? And just asking if I could help him take the trash to the curb has changed our relationship. We have cameras and we send pictures to each other like, do you know this person? They're on your porch. Were they delivering? That's the kind of community that we're creating in Grant Beach and the other neighborhoods that we work with. You know your neighbors,
Right.
and you watch out. And then that watching out, that collectiveness is really what changes. So we actually focus most of our work in Grant Beach. When I was young and reading everything I could.
So you're from Springfield?
I'm from Branson.
Branson.
But I went to school at Drury, left for grad school, and came back. So Springfield is, I've lived here the longest. I started reading about solutions for housing on how do we increase home ownership. So a lot of programs are out there. Many of them are funded to where ultimately the developer takes a risk, yes, but it's a pretty calculated risk. You're going to get paid by the government for those buildings. But after 10 to 15 years, you can kick everyone out when that subsidy ends, do a renovation, and now up the prices, and you've created a problem where everyone's displaced. And so that is actually where Tom Carlson comes in. Tom was working on a HUD project and had asked if I would be interested in doing the education piece in order to improve his likeliness for the HUD. And we were driving around, and you talked about a ghetto. What we often do is say, well, let's build a cul-de-sac over here where there are no resources, and let's congregate individuals who are all barely making it. Many of them might be in crisis, or the lawnmower breaks and yeah, their yard is not mowed, but they have no means to fix the mower, pay for someone to do it. And also they've created isolation, even though you're living next to each other, because I can't help you and you can't help me. And we compound a problem. So what we do is 70% of the homes that we build, that we renovate or build in Grant Beach, go to individuals who are 200% or below. But they do have to qualify for a traditional loan. Right now, because we're in a depressed neighborhood, we have down payment assistance. We can get someone into a home at 5.75%, huge in this time.
That's good.
Yeah, with some funding, anywhere from $7,000 to $9,000 to help cover those down payment costs. But for our program, for that commitment, we have right of first refusal on the house for 5 years. It has to remain as a primary resident, and if they choose to sell it, we can buy it back and put in another family. After that 5 years, it's up to them, but we are hopeful that they will obviously stay in the neighborhood and continue to create community. We gift asset as well, so typically we sell our houses $10,000 below kind of an adjusted where the interest rate or where the rate should be as far as valuation of the home. Then 30% we actually sell to market because we want to increase the social economic blend in Grant Beach. We want to attract individuals that are above 300, 400% poverty level that are thriving, that then can help the neighbor. They can help build and recreate that sense of community. And so they also have a 5-year right of first refusal. It has to remain as a primary residence. And that's also what we'll be doing. The Broadway Cottage Courtyards, the Pocket Neighborhood, it'll be in a CID, Community Improvement District, which will have some, almost like an HOA, but it's a non-predatory form. It'll have shared trash service, shared lawn service, so those are taken away. They're basically prepaid. And those individuals, it can only be primary residents. You cannot rent it out. You can't Airbnb it. It is simply about we are creating community, and those will have, some of them we're hoping to keep even a $50,000 asset, but they'll have a 7-year right of first refusal for us in order to make sure that they're really creating community and that sense of home ownership.
Amy, we've got a video, and I think this would be a good time to show that. Dennis, if you'll get that ready. Dennis is our volunteer producer that does a great job for us, and everybody in Acts Ministry is a volunteer. And the lovely thing I think about your project, Broadway Cottage project, is, as you said, you flipped the kind of the way the homes usually are. You've got all the inside area is looking at each other, so you've got everybody looking at each other on the front porch instead of the opposite way of having the front porch on the front by the road.
Right.
And then you've got the backs all separate and stuff like that. So I like it the way you squared it, and I think you've got a video to kind of show that. So let's,
so the video is about just in general kind of the Blue House project and some of the houses that we've done. So yeah.
Okay.
We are here right outside of the Drew Lewis Foundation with the one and only Amy Blansit, who's the founder of the Drew Lewis Foundation. Amy, thanks for inviting me out.
Absolutely. So glad to have you here on our front porch.
Well, and that's it. We are on the front porch of one of the homes with the Blue House Project, and it's blue.
It happens to be blue.
Was that purposeful?
On this one, it was. This is actually a project that we're working with on a group that recycles paint. And they had learned that we have the Blue House Project. They have a blue, and so they've donated all the paint for this entire house, inside and out.
That's cool. And you can actually kind of smell some of the paint because they've been painting
It is
today?
today we've had a little bit colder, so we've had our painter inside getting the walls ready, make sure that this house is ready to go when we have our guests on May 5th.
Well, speaking of that, we have the upcoming event, the Porch Party, here at the Drew Lewis Foundation.
Yes.
Cinco de Mayo, May 5th.
Yes.
What can you tell us about this event?
So it's a 10-year anniversary. It's hard to believe, but 10 years ago, Drew and I bought the property in February. And so we really just want to celebrate what that 10 years has been for this community. And we also want to celebrate Drew. It's in his honor that we get to do this. He loved real estate and he loved this community. And we'll have several houses in different conditions. We have an 1880s house. That's a triple brick construction. That's amazing. We'll have it open so individuals will be able to walk the neighborhood if they want. Everything's within 5 blocks, and that's our intention, is to do the idea was 5 and 5.
Yeah.
And then it became 10, and now we're excited to be, pushing 20 this year. We'll have different kind of refreshments at each of those locations, and then we're inviting everyone back to the Fairbanks afterwards for kind of just an additional celebration. Drew's favorite drink was the Cuba Libre, so we might have some of that available as well.
Well, it sounds.
Cinco de Mayo.
Well, hey, celebrating in style.
Absolutely.
Honoring Drew.
Yes.
We'll all be here.
All right.
And you should join us as well. Once again, it's happening on May 5th, Cinco de Mayo, the Porch Party here with the Drew Lewis Foundation. Amy, thanks.
Thank you.
That's very good. That's
Yeah,
very
so-
good. And so,
That shows some of the housing of the state that they were in. Many of them were from slumlords. We always do May, so we always do the first Friday in May. So that was from last year. We always do a porch party where we invite everyone into the community. We've got the list of now nearly 30 properties that we've renovated. And then we always highlight 3 of them. This year we'll also have, it'll just be cleared. So the cottage courtyards will actually be under construction. Unfortunately, in May, there won't be any building, but that'll be all the utility work and all the updating, because those properties have never had a home on them. So it's complete new infrastructure for even city utilities to come along with us on this project.
well, that is exciting. You know, one of the things, Amy, that Mary and I want to do, and we and Don, when we started, this show is all about bringing hope. The thing that I like about you as a difference maker, and we don't have somebody that's on the show that's not a difference maker. And it's just an amazing thing how many difference makers that we have out there doing different things. But one of the things that Jim Whining and I did, our CEO of Acts Ministry, when we first started thinking of what are we going to do, I left the radio business doing political show for 7.5 years, and what would we do that was different? I said, well, let's be positive every week. Let's have positive solutions. Let's tell the truth about the issues, but let's have a positive solution.
Absolutely.
Because when you watch the news at night, it's always negative.
Yes.
And the radio is negative, and the newsprint is negative. Everything's always negative.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to complain. And so I think Dr. Mary Byrne and I and Don, when we first started, we've done a good job. So one of the things that we're going to accomplish today, and so we're going to find out how people get a hold of you, contact you, because there are people watching today from all 50 states.
Yeah.
They're watching. And they need somebody out there in every state needs to step up
Yes.
like you. And they need to not just talk about it, not just worry about it, but actually do something about it. And they can, because I know that
we
if
have an
they
expansion program.
if they
Absolutely.
contact you, you would give them ideas and hints. And I know a lot of it has to do with having good grant writers and knowing where the grants are.
Yes.
I know even in our county budget, getting grants is a big thing in our county. If we just had to rely on taxes only, we'd be hurting. So thank goodness that many of our departments get grants.
Absolutely.
And that really helps us. But so how do people get a hold of you?
Yeah. So if you're interested in housing, it's bluehouse@drewlewis.org. If you're interested in our RISE program, it's rise@drewlewis.org. Both of those are expansion programs. We're currently in 6 counties, and we try to expand to 6 more every single year. Some of them cycle in, some of them cycle out. We have 2 projects that are going in Colorado. We've got a group now that we're working with in Ohio. So it doesn't have to be here in Springfield. We have an entire
you're actually
education.
in other states.
We
See,
are.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, that's new. Well,
Okay.
Colorado we've had now for 2 years.
Okay.
But Ohio, Indiana, those are ones that have seen us. We're a part of the True Charity Network, and that is again across multiple states. And so a lot of those organizations are they've started programs, but many programs are a couple of weeks long. It's a budget class, and then what? Ours
For your clients.
for the clients, yes. And so ours, we now have over a year of ongoing education, and so it is a commitment. No one moves out of poverty in 2 to 3 months.
Right.
And so ours now has more than a year of education and programming. We also work on educating the facilitators. So it can be remote. We can actually do it in person. So we have an entire affiliate program set up and staff. We just actually hired a development coordinator where her job is solely to work on grants, expansion, and helping organizations that want to launch it somewhere else identify those grants. There's lots of opportunity in partnering with banks in their CRA, Community Reinvestment Act funds. Because it has an educational component, they can partner with. And the banking is so, so important. Luckily, when we talk about success, my success comes from Todd Purnell and Brian Fogel and other leaders in our community who came alongside and gifted me their knowledge, their social capital. They're just, it's amazing person after person, but that banking piece was so important of we change lives by increasing credit score and teaching individuals those middle-class systems so that they aren't getting taken advantage of, they're getting the best rates, they create those relationships, and then that leads to better transportation because I can afford a car at a lower rate. It leads to the rent. It leads to how much do I have to put down when I start city utilities. Our credit score affects so much. And so the program includes that, as well as many other things. So it's not just a facilitation class, it's as a community, what do you need to do to change those dynamics? The conversation, how do we talk about poverty? So our education, when someone wants to bring it to their community, includes all of those factors in order to make sure that that community is really collectively, that collective impact is really important. So yeah, we love sharing it.
Do you help them get credit cards to teach them, educate them?
We do.
I mean, some people are afraid of credit cards.
But you have to have them.
To help
That's
your
that middle class
credit,
system.
to help your credit score.
Right, even to
do.
get the loan,
Yes.
they want to look at your credit
Yes.
score.
Yeah.
We do. So what we've actually worked with too is banks communicating with banks. So we just, we go to Jeff City and we actually there also talk with like the Missouri Banking Association. They have headquarters up there. So on that, there are opportunities where banks can do small $250 secured credit. There's also programs where you can create a loan. You create a savings account, and basically one pays the other. And so the individual isn't necessarily managing it. They're putting in an amount, $30 a month, and in the year, they now have that loan paid off. They have a savings, and now they're completely bankable. So working with banks in small amounts. The most incredible thing that we did, and again, this comes from working closely with Multiply Bank, which is now changing their name. That's the other thing with banks. Who are you with and what's the name today? But Multiply Credit Union worked with us. They had a loan loss prevention program through being a CDFI. And we put $10,000 in an account and our families can borrow against it. They have to meet with one of our coaches. They have to have a budget.
So
they have
you're
to
the
be
guarantor.
We're the guarantor. It took $10,000 and we use grant dollars. They then can borrow against ours. That has probably helped us pay off and create maybe $200,000 worth of secured loans. The individuals then, once their credit is high enough and they're bankable, Multiply puts them then on their own, and we now have funds for the next individual. We put that in there 8 years ago. We still have $6,700. The loss has come from one of our members passed, and we chose to absorb the loan instead of passing that on to her family, and then some bank fees here and there. So $10,000 in 8 years has created massive amount of bankability. We've helped recreate that program in multiple counties as well in order to have a payday lending alternative, to recreate banking, but we had to teach banks how to do it. And that's what is amazing to me. This summer.
Speaking of teaching, when you were a teacher, what did you teach?
Nothing to do with business or
That's what I
nonprofit
wanted to
management
know.
or housing. My degree, my undergraduate and master's are in exercise physiology. I
wow.
loved, nothing, never had an economics or business class. Loved science and thought I would stay in the medical field. And then I bought a house near the school, and I watched it just for 6 years be torn down, basically. And I just couldn't watch it anymore. But I do love real estate. I grew up on a farm, and my dad.
So you had a real life
Yes,
change.
I did. So I taught at Missouri State. My doctorate's in health sciences. So I taught in the kinesiology department, everything from health and wellness to exercise physiology classes. And then 2 years ago, Drew Lewis Foundation just grew to the point where I was working 80 hours, splitting my time, and it just wasn't working anymore. And I had to make a hard decision. I love teaching. I was in an amazing department with autonomy and students that loved what they did. So it was really hard to leave that. But now I love what I do. I live across the street from the Fairbanks. And so when you talk about work-life balance, maybe I don't have it, but
But your
love
travel
it.
to job costs
Yes.
are
I have-
extremely low.
I have no mileage on my vehicle, but we have a coffee shop there. We have a bike shop there. We're by Commercial Street, so those of us that live in the neighborhood ride our bikes down to Commercial Street, C Street, and downtown. And so my work-life balance is I'm never sitting in a car for 20, 30 minutes driving across town. I like every day love what I do. And I don't care that my work is across the street because it is the most fulfilling thing that I've ever done. Seeing I got a message from one of our members who's moved away, and we're getting ready to launch in Columbia where she's moved. And she sent me a message and said, my employer is going to provide me free education. I want to do what you do. What degree do I need to go for? And now, lo and behold, there are degrees in nonprofit leadership, even
Right,
master's
right, right.
degrees. And so talking through that and her saying, I want to change lives like you have. I want to be involved in you guys launching in Columbia. And her husband and their children went from barely, making it to now owning a home, both of them gainfully employed, thriving in Columbia, and still reaching out to us to say, we know that this was a pivotal point for us, and we want to do this for others. Having individuals, man, that celebration of handing someone a key. I get to go to Hogan Land and Title, 5-10 times a year. So they were luckily friends of mine because of Drew, and they are amazing to work with us and to waive any fees that they can to make sure that they can help us get a family into that home. Amazing team there that are so warm and welcoming, and that moment of handing off that key, it's amazing.
Amy, when I look at you, I think about what Mary said about your education and how you switched and everything. But I look at you and I think about you're a very brilliant lady, and you had great mentors. So when you're
Yes.
talking about Todd Purnell and all the gentlemen in Springfield that you've worked with, they've been great leaders, mentors to you, and you've been very smart and you absorbed that and learned it quickly. And then because of Drew being such a great realtor, I
Yeah.
kind of looked him up and kind of looked way back to see what, and he was very well established.
Yes.
Back you guys were, and now you're carrying that on. Mm-hmm. That's pretty cool.
It is. It's one of those where when someone passes, they say they pass twice. Once is the actual moment, and the other is when people quit saying their name. And so it's obviously very emotional and very touching that to honor him. And I love real estate. I loved real estate. I love that he was in real estate. I could be a looky-loo and go see all the houses that I wanted to see. And so to get back to real estate and to see this program that I believed in so heavily 6 years ago, so passionately, that Tom Carlson and his wife were our bankers. They personally invested in this first home, and they've done 6 with us. I didn't realize that passion was so strong that it moved other people to be involved. And that's, I think, one important thing too for listeners here. We're in a very contentious time about how much should government be involved and how much do we do independent. I'm so proud that our program is We have banks that have given us revolving loans. We have CDs that we borrow against. I just met with an amazing individual, Dan Cobb, in our community, who is investing in a new bank. He put a CD that we get to borrow against so we can get really great rates, and we use the money when we need it. But then we also have a lot of private donors. We've had individuals that have walked into our building with a $100,000 check to say, I want to buy this house with you, and I need nothing back. I don't even need to say my name, right? So those types of things, that public, private, and we do receive $100,000 or so that we pull out of our state budget in order to pay for our staff that are renovating these
How
homes.
many employees do you have?
I just hired 2 more, and I think that puts us at, with our part-timers, 20.
Yeah, and that's quite a bit more than when we talked last time.
It is
And
quite a
so,
bit more.
Yeah, so I mean, really, you didn't have that many staff back then.
No.
And you got volunteers.
We do. Actually,
and that's a key too.
It is. We have 3 women that volunteer in our housing project every single Thursday. One of them is 6 hours, the other one's there 4 hours. The other one's, she gives time 2, 4, 6 as well. They are there every Thursday. They've created an amazing network. One of them's, or 2 of them are retired. One of them just has Thursdays off. So we're getting ready to do a house we just bought on Webster that will be women-led. They're doing all the design. They're going to be doing the painting. It doesn't have as much renovation as some of our other houses where we fully need to gut it. And so, yeah,
Mostly
volunteers.
decorating.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, it still has, like, drywall has to come off and the floors are refinished. There is no kitchen. So it's still a pretty heavy renovation. But the 3 of them are going to tackle it. My lead, Chris, will definitely be involved. I'll be involved. But volunteers, their free work on that house is going to be a gift of probably $10,000 to $15,000 to that family that buy that home. Right. And so it takes community, but it does take private, public, it takes volunteers. That's why our housing project works. I sat down with Stephanie Stinger, another amazing advocate of mine and leader in our community, as well as others on this board. And they had said, we've looked at doing this, it just doesn't work. The housing that's in the 150,000 and below, especially if tariffs end up affecting the wood resource and whatever in the coming months, we may have to halt our build because it's going to increase our cost 25%, and we can't pass that on to members. And so building that 150,000, which is what most of Springfield can afford, our builders just can't do it. It doesn't make sense to them. And they have the right to make money, right? That is that free capital piece. For them, even to break even is very difficult, and it's a lot of work to break even. And so I understand why they are building big houses where they can, they don't have to worry about
Bigger margin.
There is a bigger margin. And so it does take community to do what we're doing. And it's amazing to see we have too many houses right now, and we're having to hire out contractors because it's working, and we just have amazing people that are helping us make it happen.
Well, fantastic job. We're going to run out of time, but I do want to talk about our sponsors. So we do have 2 sponsors. The first one is Brad Pistow, Certified Fiduciary Financial Planner, located right in Ozark, Missouri, Trinity Insurance Financial Services. Brad is licensed in, I think, 12 states and has associates in all 50 states. He has written 2 books, Safe Money Matters and Bulletproof, both #1 best-selling books on Amazon. You can buy them in Springfield or buy them online, and they are extremely good books to think about retirement planning. It's never too early to think about retirement planning, especially the way we have costs today and things like that. And I use Brad Pistow. My family uses Brad Pistow. I have a lot of friends that use Brad Pistow, and he is absolutely one of the best people that I've ever seen. Just give you a real quick example, Mary. So just the other day, Brad Pistow called me up and said, hey, Janet and you need to come in. I've got a new plan that we need to go ahead and sell one of your investment plans that each one of you have, and we're going to trade it in, and we're going to get a cash bonus, and then we're going to get a 2.5% higher interest rate. And so I didn't know cash bonus. That sounded pretty good. When I got there, it was $40,000 a piece. So when we walked out, it only took us 20 minutes. We made $80,000 cash
Yeah.
bonus, plus I'm getting 2.5% more.
Yeah.
And that's and I didn't pay him anything. He gets his money on the backside. So I'm really happy.
Yeah.
And
I want to
and
throw in
testimony.
for individuals that have that opportunity and you're looking for a way to gift some of that funds. Drew Lewis Foundation is a great way in your planning in
Yeah.
order to, or other nonprofits that you believe in. So I always shout out anytime someone's talking about planning, thinking about that long-term planning, what do you want to do afterwards? Or if you ever need a write-off, donate to nonprofits. We will definitely help you out with that.
Sure. Thank you. No, that's
Go ahead and plug that one.
no, that's very good. That's very good. And our other sponsor is it used to be Youngblood Motor, and now Springfield Nissan, Springfield Kia. It is still John Whittaker, but also we have Brian that was on our show, and we'll have him back on our show again. We'll have both sponsors on our show probably March or April. We try to get them on twice a year, but actually they are located 3535 South Campbell, and they sell new cars on one side. They sell used cars on the other side of South Campbell, other side of the street. And they actually have a lot of certified cars. I thought about, I buy my Jeeps. I know you got a Jeep.
I love Jeeps.
I love your Jeep. I just saw it. And now that I'm older, I don't drive those type of Jeeps anymore. I drive.
They're a little hefty to get in.
I drive Grand Cherokee Summits. That's the top of the line, and that's what I'll be buying again. And my last two have been Summits. But you can still take them off road if you
Yeah.
want to. It's just.
I love them. They're so versatile
Oh, yeah.
and American made, and yeah.
Yeah, so we have that in common, but they sell those cars. They can help me find them. I usually buy that white car out there had 4,800 miles when I bought it. I purposely use people that will help me find cars under 10,000
Yeah.
miles. The one before that had 8,300 miles on
Yeah.
it. And John Youngblood, that was his actual car that he drove. And I bought his car. I told him I want that car. so he sold me that car and had 8,300 miles on it. And so that's just like buying a brand new
Yeah.
car, but you're saving a lot of money.
Yes, you are.
But those are our two sponsors. We really appreciate it. Last word, what else do you want to say today, Amy, before we sign off?
I think right now we have a lot of energy. We're seeing constant breaking news. It's something of making sure that you're finding information that isn't breaking, right? What is the detail behind it? But it motivates you. You have an energy when you get excited, those endorphins are happening. Find something to do. Get involved. We talk about mental health. All of these things come back to being isolated, not getting involved, not having social engagement, finding people that are different from you and communicating with them, learning about what the barriers are. That's how change happens. Creating isolation and being constantly in this news is a mental health problem. And so it's meet your neighbors, break
off
down
the
those barriers.
television.
Yeah, right. Get outside, go do something.
Yes.
Why are we on the screens all the time? So my challenge to everyone is find a place for your energy, find a place to volunteer, find a place to give back to your community, mow your neighbor's yard unexpectedly, right? Just do something, be a doer, be a change maker, be someone who is creating positive things for other people. It's going to do something for the other person, absolutely, but it's going to do so much more for you.
Right.
And that's what I do every day, and it's amazing. I live so fulfilled because my day is constantly about doing something for someone else, and they're always saying thank you, and they don't understand how big for me it is. Thank you. Thank you for trusting in me. Thank you for believing in me. Thank you for letting me give back. The value in that and the quality of life that I live is something that I wish everyone else could experience.
Well, I tell you what, Amy, you are an amazing difference maker. And so next week we will have Kate and Jerry Angelo. They are pastors and marriage counselors. They have written books, several books between them, and they have just gotten back from Dallas at a marriage conference. They also, Jerry just got back from Washington, D.C., They also are active in Jefferson City, a lot like you. They are everywhere, just like you too. They're everywhere because we need to be everywhere. We need to be active. We need to be engaged. We need to be making a difference, a positive difference in people's lives. And like you said, when you do that, it's going to come back for
Yeah,
you.
that reciprocity
It
is
does.
amazing.
Yeah. So anyway, appreciate you watching today, and we'll be back next Wednesday.